Today we have a beautiful passage to contemplate in our moment of prayer. And after you have done your morning offering, we enter into this sacred moment. Remember, these concentrated moments are the ones that will nourish you throughout your day. And the more you actually dispose your soul to take advantage of this moment and try to really put aside all the distractions, whatever can take away your attention from Jesus, I would recommend you to put it aside, right? To leave it for later. I hope that having to use the cell phone for the video prevents you from the temptation of also seeing the messages that might be entering, or from social network, whatever other distractions it might provide, right? And we enter to this moment of prayer, again, as we have done these days, asking Jesus to please increase our faith, our love, and our charity, right? Faith, hope, and love, the theological virtues that are the three virtues that we need to actually be ourselves in the presence of Jesus, right? And especially here when we are on earth, we need faith and hope, as we will not need them in heaven. Actually, St. Paul says that those two virtues will disappear once to get to heaven, because it is true. Faith, we need it here because we don't see God. In heaven we will see God. So then we won't need those sort of like special glasses that he provides us during this earthly life, so that we can be able to see through that lens the presence of God in all the circumstances of life. That is how faith works. And hope is that longing for Him, and it's to have the certainty that He is with me despite of the circumstances, right? And especially in difficult circumstances, when we are able to remain in His presence and to remain firm in the hope, in the certainty that there's a treasure behind every difficulty, then that hope is the one that helps us persevere, and that hope becomes also a witness to other people. But then in heaven we won't need it, because we won't need to hope that we will get something, right? Or that we will finally make it to the eternal embrace. We will actually be in that eternal embrace. So then we could say that faith and hope are some sort of disposable virtues. Nevertheless, they are theological, and they are a gift from God, right? And then charity is the only one that will remain. So in this moment of prayer, we can ask the Holy Spirit to increase our faith and our hope, so that we can persevere till we get to that eternal embrace, but also so that those theological virtues can enlighten and kindle our hearts with the fire of the love of Christ. That love that humanity is longing for. Maybe right now, with all the COVID situation, you have seen how many crises have come to many of your friends' families, right? Maybe you have seen people dying, hopefully not, but maybe yes. Maybe you have seen people struggling with the stress that all this situation provokes, right? Not only because of health issues, but also economical issues. So today we want to ask you, Lord, to increase our theological virtues, so that we can be a light for a world that is darkened by a lack of love, a lack of faith, and a lack of hope. That we can be that little light that tells them not everything is lost, and actually we are far away from despair, right? Life is so beautiful, even in the midst of so many difficulties. And actually today, Jesus gives us a very beautiful passage where He knows that we are struggling. He knows that we have difficulties, that we have challenges, that our lives are not perfect. And that is why He wanted to give us this beautiful passage that you can find in Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30. As you can see, these days we have been reading the Gospel of Matthew, and it's beautiful how the liturgy leads us right step by step into a mystery that unveils little by little in our hearts. So today Jesus in that Gospel tells us, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourselves, for my yoke is easy and my burden light." This is such a beautiful passage for people that are struggling, for all of us to bring it, to illumine and to bring consolation to all those areas of our lives that we wish were different, right? Only God knows, or hopefully someone else. Hopefully we have the confidence to share our struggles with someone else, not only with God. That's something very healthy to do, right? But first of all, obviously, that we bring them to Jesus, and that we hope that He can take them into His heart. And that whenever I am crying, or I am worried, or I am stressed out for any situation that might be going on in my life, I have the certainty that when He takes it into His heart, He feels the burden with me. He struggles with me. And this reveals so much about the God of Christianity. The God of Christians is such a different God than the God of other religions, because our God is a God that decided to become flesh. And with this, He assumed all the implications of being a human person, the implication of carrying the burdens of the daily life, of dealing with time when you wish you were already there in the face of the Father, and you are not there yet, right? When you wish your life were perfect, but just the fact that we live in this world, our lives have to be imperfect some way or another. There's always something that makes our hearts struggle, right? And that maybe is crushing us, or maybe is weighing too much on us. And in those moments is when Jesus wants us to come to Him. And today He is telling us, come to me. As we said in the very first meditation of this week, Jesus wants to occupy the very first place in our hearts. And as we said, it's not because He is this ambitious God that wants to take over everything and He's so greedy and He wants more and more. No, it is because He wants to bring the peace of His heart. He wants to fill our hearts with the abundance of that peace that only He can give. And He will give it only if we allow Him in. And not because He's this kind of people like, okay, if you don't accept me, then bye. No, that's not His personality. Rather, because He's a gentleman, and He will not enter into your heart if you don't let Him in. Just because He is so respectful of your freedom. He is omnipotent, but at the same time, He is impotent when you say, no, stop there, stay there. And He will be very obedient, and He will stay outside of your heart if you don't allow Him in. So that is why today He insists, come to me. It's another way of saying, let me in. Come to me, or let me in, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. How much we all long for that rest. And with this passage, that other passage of the Samaritan woman comes into my mind and in my heart for you, dear missionaries. We know that passage of the Samaritan woman is in John chapter 4, where she arrived to the well, right? In a time where she knew she was not going to find the other women, that she felt judged by them. So she tried to avoid them, and she tried to avoid everyone. But that day, Jesus happened to be there. And I imagine as she was approaching the well, she was like, gosh, now I need to talk to this Jewish, and for sure he's a Jewish because he has all the features, right? Maybe he had the big Jewish nose, beautiful but big. Who knows? We'll find out when we get to heaven. But maybe she was like, okay, here we go, right? And suddenly she starts feeling the beauty of his gaze, of how she was just looking at her intently as she was approaching to the well. And he was all sweaty because of the walk that he had with the apostles. So he was all sweaty and tired, and still he asked her, "Woman, give me to drink." It's another beautiful way of saying, "Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened." Jesus, is asking the Samaritan woman, "Give me to drink." And it seems like contradiction. In one passage, he is the one that needs consolation and needs to be accompanied and refreshed. But then in this passage, he is the one that is consoling and is refreshing our souls. And this brings us back to that certainty where prayer is a mutual act of love. Prayer is a moment where you give yourself to him and you can just lean your head on his chest and hear his heartbeats. And he's there just hugging you and just like embracing you and giving you all the consolation that you need. But then at the same time, allow yourselves to switch places. And I am sure this will be a beautiful source of prayer, missionaries, if in that moment when Jesus is hugging you and he's giving you all this relief and consolation, then you just look into his eyes and ask him, "Jesus, you also need consolation, right? Come here, come to me, you who labor and are burdened, and let me give you rest." And allow yourself to say those words to Jesus, and allow him to look into your eyes and to tell you, "Yes, I also need those consolations." And it touches me, right? It's like very moving to imagine a God that is so omnipotent, that comes to you and leans his head on your chest, and he receives your hug and he receives your consolation. And that, dear missionaries, is the perfection of prayer. It's when you are able to reach that mutual empathy, that mutual understanding, and that intimacy of understanding what is going on in his heart, because he also understands what is going on in your heart, right? You understand him and he understands you, and you love each other. So right now I will stop this video so that you can just enjoy that moment of embrace, and you can prolong it as much as you need it. And then when you finish your prayer, just remember to tell Jesus, "Come with me throughout the day. I want you to be with me all day long."